All right, let's move on to the fourth team in this division, and these next two teams coming up really close and just trying to fight their way into playoff spots. And it's going to be weird if we don't see one or both of these next teams not in the postseason. But we'll start with one of them in the Washington Capitals, currently in fourth in this division, 58 points in 52 games. We know they have just been hammered with injuries. But with that being said, Case, let's get your grade for the Caps.
I think other than the Carolina President's Trophy argument at the preseason rankings, the biggest argument we had in this division was Washington and Pittsburgh, and we pretty much determined that it's going to be very close between these two teams. I think Chad had Pittsburgh above Washington, and Harp and I had it the other way. Well, 1 point separates these two teams, and Washington is on top, so suck it, Chad.
Points percentage, though.
Okay.
One team is in the playoffs in terms of point percentage, and it's not the Capitals.
That matters a whole lot.
Did 1 year.
I have Washington as a B because they're exactly where I expected them to be in the standings, but they are very middling in terms of everything. They're very middling in every stat there is, but they just kind of find ways to win games. I guess that's experience is what shows there, but a middling team that is in a playoff spot, they better hold on to it. But yeah, it's there's nothing that jumps out for them.
I think, honestly, we should do both of these teams together because I think they've always been tied together, and they will be going forward, at least until the end of the season. So I gave both teams a B because I think, again, this is pretty much exactly where we thought both teams would be, on the outside looking in or just sneaking into the playoffs, like right on that fringe, because they both have that aging core that was so good in the past, and they're still trying to cling on to that. And they can, for the most part, and they can still be competitive with the cores that they have. So, it's not like an aging team like San Jose, who has their core relatively intact, except for, I guess, Burns leaving this season, and then aren't able to compete at all. Like, these two teams still have their core. They're still able to compete. I gave them both a B. And like I did mention, they're both competing for that last playoff spot. If we sort by points, Washington is in fourth and Pittsburgh's in fifth in this division. If we sort by points percentage, they flop or they flip, and Pittsburgh is 15th in the NHL in points percentage. Buffalo is 16th, actually, and then Washington goes down to 19th in points percentage. So, I guess we'll see how the final couple months of the season go and which team gets in.
A bird
both
in the hand is worth two in the bush.
Yeah, listen, they could lose their next 3 games, Pittsburgh that is, and they would have the same points percentage, but I'm just saying it's very close, and we'll have to see how it shakes out at the end of the year. For Washington, I think the problem obviously has been injuries. They're very banged up. Backstrom's only played 9 games. Wilson's only played 8. He's still out. Connor Brown played 4 games this season. He's still out. John Carlson literally severed his ear off, or a part of his ear off, and is still out, and I don't know when he's going to return. So obviously that is a major factor for their lack of success. So even if they miss this year, I don't think they make crazy changes in the offseason. But right now, I think a B is good for them. And then moving on to Pittsburgh now, and like I said, I think it makes sense to do these two in the same. You look at their top point producers: Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, all over a point per game. They're getting good depth scoring this season from guys like Zucker, Raquel, and Rust, and of course Letang, who has had just an incredible season, an emotional season that is as well. And for Pittsburgh, goaltending finally really isn't the problem. Both Jari and DeSmith have positive goals saved above expected and pretty good regular surface level numbers as well. And They're a good possession team who is generating a ton of expected goals, eighth in the NHL right now. So, again, I think for both teams, where they're currently situated in this Metro, they could both make the playoffs if 5 Metro teams make it and 3 Atlantic teams make it. I know, Harper, you wouldn't be satisfied with that because that would mean your Sabres wouldn't. But I think, a good team or 2 or 3 is going to have to miss the playoffs this year. It might be one of these two, but the way it's trending right now, it might not be either. So B's for both.
So I'm going to give the Caps a B and the Penguins a B minus. And, as we mentioned, Caps at 52 games, Pens at 49, so they've got 3 games in hand, a chance to jump up on the Capitals' backs here, and these teams have been tied together forever with Crosby and Ovechkin, as we mentioned. But a couple of reasons why I'm going to put the Capitals ahead of the Penguins a little bit with the B grading versus the B minus is because obviously injuries, and 2, the Capitals have had some really good finds that have been really good for them this season. Sonny Milano, for example, who did not re-sign in Anaheim, went the whole summer without signing anywhere, goes on a PTO with the Calgary Flames, gets cut, then signs for league minimum with the Capitals, and it's gotten to the point where he's been in the lineup instead of Anthony Mantha. And so, I think it's a testament to Milano and the way that he's played under Peter Laviolette, a veteran coach, and how poor of a season Anthony Mantha has had for the Capitals. A couple other guys, Charlie Lindgren, who's been an excellent backup goaltender. I thought he played really well when Kemper was out for a little while there earlier on. And Eric Gustafsson as well, very underrated defenseman on this blue line, and probably looking at a contract extension for him. Honorable mention to Dylan Strome, has been a very good player for them, and has played well in that second-line center role with Nick Backstrom out. So I'll give the Capitals a B. It's just, consistency, getting healthier, that sort of thing. And then the Penguins with a B minus. Well, talk about a team that's been so up and down this year. Like I said, that the St. Louis Blues have been the league's most inconsistent team. Well, I think you can put the Pens up there a little bit too. It's like they lose 7 in a row, and then they win 6 in a row, and it's just very streaky, very up and down. And Chad, you mentioned the goaltending, that it really hasn't been an issue. Well, it is now, because Tristan Jarry is injured, and this was the same problem that the Pittsburgh Penguins ran into in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs against the New York Rangers. Their goaltenders were hurt. They had to bring Louis Domingue in and have Casey DeSmith, and so how can you sell to your fan base that, let's say the Pens make the playoffs, we lost in the first round because of goaltending or whatever? Well, that would be the second year in a row, so they may be a team in on Demko or trying to upgrade their goaltending a little bit. So just with all that aside, I've got the Pens just below the Caps at a B minus.
I also have the Pens with a B minus. I just think that there's a couple things that stand out to me. It's just like they're not very good defensively. They have a poor power play despite having, that core group of guys. It makes no sense. And I think we're looking at depth a little different, Chad, in that there's nothing outside of those top 5 forwards that you mentioned. So I think that they lack depth when you look outside of that. Like, they do have guys like Raquel and Russ that you wouldn't necessarily think of as core guys that are scoring for them, but other than that, it's just in Zucker. Yeah. But other than that, it's just not really happening for them. So I was saying they lack scoring depth because they are pretty low in goals, but you got to look at how unlucky this team's been with goals above expected of minus 15.73, which is the 4th worst in the league. So they have been unlucky, but I just don't think that they're putting up a good enough defensive group effort to continue to win, especially with Tristan Jarry going down. Like, Jarry, that's going to be tough. We'll see what happens here, especially as a streaky team. No more goaltending, and I just smell a 5-game losing streak coming to ruin that win percentage.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, DeSmith has been slightly better than average this year. He hasn't been the problem. And like, this is a team that I've said, if they get average goaltending, they should be okay. And for the most part this season, it hasn't been spectacular. Even with Jari, it's been about above league average, just slightly above league average. And that's kind of all you need. But that being
Doesn't he
said,
have like a 917 save percentage or something like that?
he does currently have a 917, but he's been kind of up and down all year, highs and lows, and his current goal saved above expected is just above 3. So it's been, above average, but not incredible to say the least. So if they were in on Demko, like, do it. You know what I mean? Like, do it. If Demko's available and you have the assets to get him, absolutely do it, because he's a difference maker. But
And contract certainty.
that too. But in terms of like grabbing a goalie for depth, if you get a backup or something, like, I don't even know who would be available at this point. But if you were to get a backup goalie just for depth, I don't think it's going to make or break your season. And I don't think having DeSmith as your starter is going to make or break your season, because like I mentioned, he's been okay.